I'm Jason, one of the instructors at Krav Maga Self-Defense. So I was just thinking the other day, and it occurred to me the subject of mental state. You'd hear this sometimes, of course, in the self-defense world. You're depending on your mental state at the time. You have to have the proper mental state, etc. All those statements, and there is truth in that. We'll dig a little deeper on mental state, but in a way, your overall mental state is a culmination of a few factors. There's cognitive, emotional, even down to beliefs, personal beliefs, which all affect your response in a self defense situation. Also, can set some foundations as to how you train. So, if let's look at it in the sense of beliefs, there are people that have different beliefs across the board. There are different students that have come to us purely because, yes, they want to learn to defend themselves, but to them, depending on different factors, how they grew up or what they believe in, uh, there's only a certain extent to how far they'll go in defending themselves. Not that they'll stop short of keeping themselves safe, but in terms of the application of the damage that they want to apply to the aggressor in order to escape. So you'll see a good example with this would be the amount of strikes they'll put in before they stop and assess the situation with the aggressor. Is this good enough for me to escape? While others would probably keep fighting, keep striking, keep applying damage until it's a very obvious state of the aggressor where they're on the ground and they definitely can't get up anymore. Then, okay, then they'll start to think that, okay, now I can pretty much assess, or they've assessed at that time, and I can escape now. So that's where you'll see the different degrees in terms of beliefs of the mental state. For you, if you're listening to this, that's something you have to think about as well in long term. How if how will my self-defense perspective be? Am I that machine gun or am I that precision weapon? Right? There's pros and cons to each sort of approach, but that boils down to part of what you believe in your mental state. Um, Looking at the emotional, depending on the training and the stress inoculation that you receive, that's how emotional you will be at the time of an incident. If an incident happens, an aggressor comes toward you, and you have to defend yourself, the level of fear you may feel, the level of aggression in your response, and of course, we endorse controlled aggression, the level of if you have other factors as third party, like you may have dependents with you, that will also increase the emotional pressure of the situation. That will affect your mental state as well. And then, of course, um, not necessarily emotion, but how tired or how rested, how physically prepared are you at that moment? Did you have enough sleep? Or is it like a Monday morning where you're dragging your feet to work, you're drowsy, you haven't had your coffee yet, that type of feeling? That also affects your mental state. That affects your response. How, if you're feeling that way, how alert are you as you're commuting from point A to point B, as you're traversing? Um, Although less likely for things to happen in the morning. But let's say in the evening on a night out, how intoxicated are you? How inebriated are you on a night out in the city? That it could be part of your sort of mental state, right? In how you respond to, or how in your self-defense overall, which a big part of it would, as would be, that would be affected, would be your awareness. How alert are you of your surroundings? How sound are your cognitive properties, your thinking. There's a dark alley over there. There's not much light, but that's a shortcut. Or I can spend just an extra few minutes walking around in this well lit sort of route to get to where I'm going. So those I'm oversimplifying, but these are the decisions that your mental state can affect, which in turn affects the big picture of your self defense. Now, what's interesting is a lot of the talk on mental state focuses on the trainee, with our side, and the trainee, your side, you defending yourself, which makes a lot of sense because that's the focus of most schools. But um, mental state, your aggressor's mental state, can also be a factor in the outcome of the situation, of the self-defense situation. So you'll have, like a video game, you can call them different levels of different levels of badness of your aggressor, right? They could be a level 1 thug, level 2, level 3, as it escalates. So what I mean by this is they could have a mental state of, I just want to rob this person. I may produce a knife, or in other countries, produce a pistol, whatever weapon to intimidate and threaten the subject of their badness to get what they want. But their mental state is, this is all I want to do. I don't really want to hurt that person. I just want to scare them and rob them. So um, that is a factor for what happens in that self-defense situation, because they're more, if you respond or choose to respond, they are less likely to continue to want to fight you or prolong the fight, or they'll give up more easily compared to other aggressors of different levels, right? And another factor is how much um, how much offenses are they prepared to go down with, in terms of, okay, I am prepared to be charged with armed robbery, right? But I am not prepared to be charged with malicious wounding or attempted murder, all those things. So that also affects the mental state of the aggressor, because there's a line that they don't want to cross, and it's advantageous to the trainee, in the sense that if they engage, there's an incident and the trainee decides to start fighting to defend themselves, the it's less likely for the aggressor to follow through. They're more likely to sort of disengage and run away, because they they don't want it to escalate further. They're only prepared if they're caught by police and charged through the courts, etc. They're only prepared to do to take the penalty this far for these type of offenses. Now, these are some of the aggressors that probably have some sense into them, and they maybe know a little bit to gauge things. But of course, what complicates it is, what if they're drug affected? That affects their mental state too, especially the cognitive part, right? And so this is where it gets a little unpredictable. Trainee responds, and even though normally that aggressor doesn't want to take it further, but because they're inebriated, they're drug affected, they're not thinking straight, they'll end up doing something that they didn't really want to do, escalating the situation, making it worse. um, yeah, so That's another factor. But these are all mental state. Mental state of the trainee, mental state of the aggressor. Of course, the trainee will never know what the mental accurately what the mental state is of the aggressor, unless they have special powers. They can read minds, like Professor Xavier of the X-Men. But if they do a little bit of study on body language and all those related subject matter, they you can get clues as to the mental state of your aggressor. Uh, just the classic scenario of displaying the knife, threatening you, and using intimidation of their violence to get what they want from you or for you to do something. Um, you can tell from their movements, facial expression, how if they're looking around a lot, not that focused on you, they're kind of paranoid of their surroundings. They're a little scared of getting caught. All those little things can clue into what the mental state of your aggressor could be as well. And yeah, put together has that whole picture of what that self-defense situation or the outcome of that self-defense situation could be. So if you have ideal scenario, right, you have a trainee that's has a very good and alert mental state. um, They're very decided as to how far they'll go in terms of inflicting damage to save themselves or their dependents. They're they're well rested. They've got a good cognitive properties of their mental state. They're quite alert, etc. If something like that happens, and comparatively, the aggressor would have sort of a comparatively poor mental state in the sense that I'll only go this far. I'm maybe still kind of new, a bit nervous as well, and that will show that the how the trainee will already, on paper, it looks like they definitely have the advantage over the aggressor. So these are and it can be the other way around, where the trainee might be in a poor mental state, the aggressor is in a sort of better position, respectively, mental state wise. Then they'll probably be more successful in the badness that they wanted to do, whether it's a robbery or more heinous stuff. So you can see the seesaw effect of mental state between the two, between the trainee and aggressor or aggressors. So that's how you can see the factor mental state could be. Unfortunately, we can't read each other's minds, and that will make life easier. So, end of the day, to be prepared, you'd want yourself in the best possible mental state, as well as the other stuff like the physical state, technical state, right? Your techniques, your physicality, but also at most of the time, you would want to be in the best mental state as much as possible. So when that self-defense situation, that incident happens to you, you are in that best possible position to defend yourself, make sound decisions, and come out on top and safe. To learn more KMG self-defense techniques, train with us at kravmagaselfdefense.com.au.